Would you have, in hindsight, have done it sooner? Maybe even later?
If I could do everything again, I wouldn't have gone to uni,
Interesting.
and I definitely wouldn't have gone and done the corporate thing at all. I think I hated it. I hated the politics and wearing a suit and all of that. I hated it. I mean, I had to force my way through it. It was willing myself through to, because I was just trying to get to the other side. I think I've always really been more of a kind of entrepreneur and a business person and wanting to do stuff on my terms, really. And I think, I think a lot more people than in reality, certainly in the UK, really want that but aren't doing it. And I think one of the main problems is there's just no role models for it in the UK. It's quite uncommon to do your own thing in the UK. Most successful people I know do it through employment, through working for a company. It's quite unusual to do your own thing and certainly to make good money that way,
Mm,
which I think is a real shame. I mean, in countries like the US, it's much more common and popular.
yeah.
That's one of the reasons I moved to Bali, because it attracts that type of person. There's lots of people from all over the world that do lots of interesting stuff, working for themselves, and make really good money. And I mean, I live between Bali and here in London, and London's amazing, and it's full of incredible people, and there's lots going on. There's not actually that many. At least I don't know that many people that are self-employed doing their own thing. Most people, even if they're doing well financially, yeah, they're doing it through corporate essentially.
I think there is definitely a reflection on particularly US versus British culture of, in one sense, Americans tend to be, like very enthusiastic, which can, has a negative side. It can be off-putting. But on the other side, British culture does still have that stiff upper lip, like not wanting to show too much enthusiasm. And I think in the entrepreneurial space, that definitely comes through.
Yeah, and on that, I've often said I don't feel British. I am British and I have a lot of British qualities. But in this respect, I do not feel British. It frustrates me within the UK that people are like this. And they will try and put other people down if they take a stand for who they are and how good they are and all the great stuff they're doing. I just don't get it. Like, you are going to be far more successful if you stand up and feel like you're doing a great job and tell people you're doing a great job, and then other people are celebrating that and you're talking about this. And there's other complications with American culture, but in this respect they're much better at that. Australians are really good at it as well. So I think we've got a bit to learn from these other cultures.
For sure. And then a question on creating that culture, like you creating that culture in groups of friends, groups of people. Would you be able to talk a little bit about the retreats that you've organized, and that we've been on together, and the whole kind of thought process behind that, and particularly the kind of cultural aspect of it in terms of like shared celebration of success?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my, I mean, when I was growing up, I really struggled because I would often feel like from friends of mine, I was regularly told, no, you can't say that, can't be like that. That's that's not what we do within our friendship group or being British or whatever. And I really hated it because I felt like I had to hide parts of who I was and show a dumbed down version. And yeah, I mean, I really struggled with it. And I think it really came to a head when I moved to London and I had a load of friends from university and we were living together. And I just thought, this is so boring. We're not having any meaningful conversations. It's just relentless banter. Anything that's not socially acceptable within a particular framework is chastised. And at the same time, I was going on a personal development journey around navigating my depression and stuff. And one of the things I realized through it was I need to actively choose my friendship group, because we are ultimately the average of the people we hang out with. So pretty much overnight, I literally fired most of my old friends and systematically built up a friendship group, initially through a personal development community that I was part of. It was an international personal development group that ended up, I was a member, and then ended up running the London chapter, then the UK chapter, then the European chapter, and I was very into that for a few years. And then I moved away from that and started to I started to find friends, find people that I really connected with and had what I would say had a really good energy. And I went through a period of organizing dinners and socials, and I would bring these people together, and I started to build this friendship group. And that was the initial start of the friendship group you came to know of, and how we met. I would do a lot of these types of socials, and really just created what I wanted, because most people I felt weren't like that. So people that were not just accepting of who I was and who each person was within the group, but also encouraged it and supported that, and celebrated how we were all different. There was a lot of love in the group, which I feel like you probably related to, and I mean I loved it. It was a lovely space. I mean, so much so that whenever people came out with us, I mean people were magnetized to it, because it's so unusual to be part of a group where everyone's like, hey, come in, meet everybody, let's have a great time. And to feel that is quite rare, I think, certainly within the UK. That then morphed into these retreats you're talking about, because I started to just get more and more busy and wanting to spend less time on these types of things. And I started seeing a lot of the people I respected and were role models to me publicly. And I noticed a lot of them were doing something similar, because they were time poor, wanted to be around a lot of high value people, catch up with existing friends, meet new people, do cool, amazing adventures, learn cool stuff. And they wanted to do all of that together, right? Because when you struggle with time, then the more things you can do in the same time, then the far more effective the use of your time is. And they all did some form of this. So essentially, I was trying to create my version of it, because I didn't know any example of that within my own sphere. So I thought, well, if it's not there, I might as well just create it myself.
Yep.
So I just took all the awesome people in my life, including yourself. I said, right, let's go somewhere for a week, and let's just have a great time. Let's hang out with friends that we know, meet some cool new people. Let's go do some cool mad stuff like skydiving or go-karting or jet skiing or whatever. Let's go somewhere different, so some different part of the UK, or go to other countries like Bali or Lanzarote or Tenerife. Enjoy, so it feels like a holiday, feels like an experience in itself. And also, let's be quite structured around what we're doing. Let's learn from each other. I mean, there's a lot of value in the room. Let's leverage that. So, facilitated sessions on financial freedom, but we did like breaking through limiting beliefs. We did health and longevity, lots of different stuff based on the expertise in the room, because, who doesn't want to like level up? I think that the last thing was this kind of accountability. So there's kind of regularity of like coming and going, right, how was the last 6 months? Let's take stock. How did we do? What were the successes? What were the challenges? But then also, what's the plan for the next 6 months, And from experience, when you've got that accountability, there's a lot of people that you respect in a room that you've essentially said, right, I want to go away and do X, Y, and Z. That you're much more compelled to do it, because you 100%. Want to show up and go, I went and did that, and I showed up, and because you want to be seen as someone with high integrity.
I definitely feel like one of the biggest things I felt from from the whole kind of accountability piece was previously a lot of the stuff that we kind of like talked about in the retreat had been stuff that I'd done very solo, like myself reading books or in my own head, or even like journaling or watching like YouTube videos, whatever it was. It was quite like a solo experience. We definitely speak about it a bit with like friends and family, and you know certainly had great conversations around it. But it was on a different level on the retreats in terms of like you wouldn't just say a goal. People would like interrogate your goal in the most positive way. And I personally really like, one, I think it was beneficial naturally, but also I just enjoyed it so much.
Great example is that something like this podcast. I think if you just meet and catch up with people, you tend to revert to quite a superficial conversation. So I think it's really important sometimes, not always, but sometimes to create a bit of structure and intentionality around a conversation or what we're doing with our time to get out these things. You know, there's so much that was even people I knew for years. I was like, I couldn't believe that they knew this thing or that they'd done this thing because it just hadn't come up in conversation. But when you force people to kind of go, right, what do you know that you're passionate about that you'd love to share? A lot comes from that.